Welcome to the second section of this course. So in this second section, we're going to be setting up our environment. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to open up Remix IDE. Remix IDE is an Ethereum IDE for building decentralized apps using Solidity. So open up your browser and Google Remix Online IDE. Click on the first one. It's going to launch the Remix IDE for you. Let's take a look at what Remix IDE is made of. So by default, you see the Remix IDE comes with some default contracts. You see storage.sol, owner.sol, ballot.sol. This byte32 generator.sol that you see was created by me before, right? Because whatever contract that we create, Remix IDE will store it in our browser cache. Except we clear our browser cache, it's going to stay there. We can import file from GitHub, from IPFS, from Gist. We can import file from those places, right? So let's open up ballot.sol, and we are going to compile ballot.sol and deploy it. Just to quickly scan through ballot.sol, you'd see we have the struct, right? It's a data structure in Solidity. This is going to be explained in the other course that I'm going to be releasing, right? We have struct proposal, right? You can just see this. If you are used to JavaScript, you can see this as, you can think of this as an object, right? That holds different key and value, right? You'd see we have address, we have mapping. Mapping can hold several addresses to this voter, so we are saying voters, right? We have proposal, an array of proposal, and this is the constructor. When these contracts being deployed, this constructor will be called. So let's deploy this, let's compile this contract and deploy it. So to compile this contract, we come to this tab, Solidity compiler. Now you would see Pragma, we added this Pragma Solidity 0.70, it's greater than 0.70, less than 0.80, right? So this tells the compiler what version of Solidity to use to compile this contract. You would see it selected 0.74, but you could use, in actual fact, you could use anything greater than 0.7, which is 7.1, 7.2, 7.3, 7.4, 7.56, but not 0.80, because it shows that less than 0.80. Now we click on compile. Right, if we click on compile details, you would notice that it shows us the metadata, bytecode, and API. The API is application binary interface. And later on, you see how we'll use the API to communicate with the smart contract using Ethers.js. So after compiling this has already compiled, we come to this tab and then deploy. We can choose to deploy to the JavaScript virtual machine, which is in the Remix IDE, it's faster, or injected Web3, which would be Metamask. But we do not have Metamask yet. We're going to be installing Metamask in the next lecture, so we'll stick to JavaScript VM, which is faster. But in a live environment, we want to deploy to the Ethereum mainnet. For the next lecture or subsequent lecture, I'll be showing you how to deploy to, we would actually be deployed to a testnet, Kovan network, Kovan testnet. So we can click on deploy now, but we can't do that because we have to pass an argument to the constructor. Remember, once you deploy a contract, you call the constructor, and the constructor requires an argument here, which is an array of bytes 32. Right. Now, to get the array of byte 32, we might try to generate byte 32 ourselves, but then that might not be compatible. So I wrote a small contract to that for us. This shows pure. says it doesn't read from storage, doesn't write to storage, returns array of byte 32, right, in memory. So let's compile this contract. Compile this, then over here we can deploy this. Once deployed, it's going to come down to deploy contracts, and then we can call this function get byte 32 array. Now that we have byte 32 array here, we could copy this, right, copy, and then come back to value.sol, compile value.sol, come to deploying of contracts, and then this is an array, byte 32. So let's just pick one more. Byte 32 string, copy, click on transact. Right, you'd notice here that has deployed it. See, decoded imports. This is what we'll pass to it, byte 32. A smart contract has been deployed. It's also going to be added to the smart contract here. You'd see delegates, get right to votes, votes, chairperson. That's the address that deployed smart contract. Proposers 0. Let's see what that is. See, this is byte 32. Byte 32 value. You can convert this byte 32 value back to this string, which is going to give you the IP 1155 if that's the right one that we copied. So that's simply straightforward. So I hope you have been able to understand the remix ID. See you in the next lecture.